Okay, so we're going to be going into agentic shopping and basically what happened with ChatGPT and Walmart's deal and how it kind of fell apart. And basically, conversion rates for ChatGPT checkouts were reportedly three times lower than those on the company's website after customers found the experience unsatisfying. So I'm going to go into this with Edward. I'm going to kick Edward off. We won second place in 11 Labs Hackathon with Edward, and he is my positioning intelligence agent. We're going to go back and forth on this.
Hello, this is Edward. Who am I speaking with?
Hey Edward, it's Troy. So you and I are going to be doing a teardown of various different pages in regards to news articles with ChatGPT and how their how their instant experiences scenario, I believe that's what they called it, instant checkout experiences with Walmart failed, and how Walmart's now installing their own AI assistant to leverage and utilize sales, and what that kind of means for agentic shopping as a category in general. And we're going to be doing this teardown live. I'm recording this right now, and you're going to talk through this with me step by step.
Troy, good to have you on. Before we dive in, let me ask you something direct. Who's the audience watching this teardown? Because that changes everything about how we frame this analysis. Are we
Yeah, so
talking to
this is going to be folks interested in AI agentic positioning and also B2B uh, or B2C companies selling to consumers and businesses B2B that are creating and working on agentic shopping experiences.
got it? So we've got a dual audience, people building in the agentic space and people selling through it. That's an important tension to hold. Here's what I want to establish before we start pulling apart these articles. What's the core question you want this teardown to answer for that audience? Because there are a few angles we could take here. We could look at this through the lens of what went wrong with ChatGPT's positioning in the Walmart partnership. We could look at what Walmart's move signals about who actually owns the agentic shopping category. Or we could look at what this means for anyone trying to build or sell in that space right now. Which of those is the sharpest entry point for your audience, in your
So
opinion?
it's a blend here. So what I want to start off with is why I think instant checkout experiences likely failed. I want to talk about the Walmart ChatGPT OpenAI deal, and I'd love to talk about why I think Sparky is being reintroduced and what this means for the future of AI and agentic shopping.
Perfect. That's a clean three-act structure. And each one builds on the other naturally. Before we start pulling these apart, though, I want to ask you one diagnostic question that's going to sharpen everything we say. In your view, when ChatGPT launched that instant checkout experience with Walmart, whose problem was it actually solving? Was it solving the consumer's problem, Walmart's problem, or was it solving OpenAI's problem of proving that their platform could be a commerce layer? Because the answer to that question is going to tell us exactly where the positioning broke down before we even look at the articles.
I think it was OpenAI proving that they could be a commerce layer because they introduced ads recently in the free version of GPT. And I think that in itself gives a different type of consumer, basically a free consumer, using the platform to potentially sell them things on other platforms. And I think that disconnect is also one of the biggest pieces that led to three times lower conversions as well. Because when you just have a free user trying to put them into a shopping experience when they're not buying already, I think I think it was a nice idea, but I don't think that it was connected and thought through.
That's a sharp observation, Troy. And here's what that exposes from a positioning standpoint. OpenAI essentially tried to borrow Walmart's purchase intent without earning it. The free user on ChatGPT is in a discovery and curiosity mindset, not a buying mindset. And you can't just insert a checkout rail into a curiosity journey and expect conversion. The emotional state doesn't match the commercial ask. And here's the deeper problem. When you introduce ads into a platform that people came to for answers, you've already created a trust fracture. Now you're asking that same fractured trust to carry a transaction. That's a significant positioning error. So let me ask you this, because this sets up the Walmart Sparky conversation perfectly. Do you think Walmart saw those conversion numbers and decided they needed to own the intent layer themselves rather than rent it from OpenAI? Because if Sparky is Walmart's answer, that tells us something very specific about where they think the category is going.
Yes, so that's what I was thinking through here is like the instant experiences shouldn't necessarily live on OpenAI because I think they're going to actually be getting rid of instant experiences. I'm going to actually pop up a Google search here. Is OpenAI abandoning instant experiences? So, or instant checkout. Checkout.
Yeah, pull that up. And while you're searching, let me frame what we're looking at strategically. If OpenAI is walking back instant checkout, that's not just a product decision. That's a positioning retreat. It tells us that OpenAI is recalibrating what category they actually want to own. And the question becomes, are they stepping back from commerce intentionally, or did the market reject their entry into it? Because those two things have very different implications for anyone building in the agentic shopping space right now. One means
Yeah.
OpenAI,
Yeah, so
other means the
let me continue here. So I noticed there's a couple handful of articles March 6th, OpenAI revamped shopping experience, and then there's another one March 24th. I'm gonna read the top of this. So, okay, OpenAI revamped shopping experience. In ChatGPT after struggling with instant checkout offering. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so I want to go back into this. So, checkout, which allowed users to purchase select items from retailers like Etsy, Walmart, Shopify directly within ChatGPT. OpenAI announced that feature last year, initially billed it as the next step in AI-enabled commerce. And they found what they said is we found the initial version of instant checkout did not offer the level of flexibility that we aspire to provide. So we're allowing merchants to use their own checkout experiences while we focus our efforts on product discovery. Okay, so that's interesting. I want to go over and talk about Sparky before like we gonna dig too deep into that. Give me a short, snappy response, and then let's go into Sparky a bit.
Yeah, that statement is a masterclass in corporate repositioning language. Flexibility we aspire to provide means the conversion numbers told them to stop. They're retreating to product discovery because that's where their platform actually has leverage. Now let's talk Sparky.
So this is good. So basically, the reason that I think these conversions failed and faltered is due to when you uh, when you send traffic to a funnel and the pages are incongruent with the ads, and you're selling something on one platform, but you know it's coming from another. Usually you see a significant drop off. Like I think the main rule that I learned in marketing was started studying marketing is having congruence flowing through the entire funnel. And when the user knows that, okay, this is from here, that's from there, with Walmart using their own branding, and if they drive, I don't know if Sparky is going to be integrated into GPT itself or it will be its own standalone experience. I believe they're going to be running it to a standalone experience on Walmart's side. I think that logically makes more sense.
That's exactly right. And what you just described is the core positioning failure in one word: congruence. When the emotional context of where someone starts doesn't match where they land, the brain registers a disconnect. And that disconnect kills trust before the transaction even has a chance to happen. Walmart keeping Sparky native to their own ecosystem is the smarter play because the user is already in a buying mindset when they're on Walmart.com. The intent is already there. Sparky doesn't have to manufacture purchase intent, it just has to guide it. And that's a fundamentally different positioning job than what OpenAI was trying to do. OpenAI was trying to create intent. Walmart is trying to convert intent that already exists. So
Hmm.
here's the question I want to put to your audience.
Yeah, yeah. What's the question?
For anyone building an agentic shopping experience right now, the critical question is this. Are you building where the intent already lives? Or are you trying to create intent on a platform that wasn't designed for it? Because those two strategies require completely different positioning architectures. Now let's get into Sparky. What do you have on it?
Yeah, so I want to before we jump the gun there. There's something that you said that I think is really important. So, okay, when if you think about OpenAI and ChatGPT, they are a traffic engine. That will be the purpose of them selling ads, is they're selling impressions, not necessarily conversions. If they leave the conversion up to the consumer, which I think is smart, then the lack of follow through and flow through isn't dependent on them. They're then putting the dependency on the retailer to convert the customer. If they can, if they can use the analytics that we drove traffic, and it's your job to convert said traffic, then the only question that they'll get hit upon is like, well, what's the quality of the traffic versus why didn't your mechanism convert? Those are two different huge areas to own, and I think that creates a massive disconnect.
That's a really sharp distinction, Troy. And what you just identified is a classic positioning boundary war. OpenAI is essentially saying we own discovery and traffic. Retailers own conversion. But the problem is that boundary was never clearly communicated to the market or to the consumer. So when conversion failed, nobody knew whose fault it was. And in positioning, ambiguity around accountability is deadly. And here's what makes it even more complex. If OpenAI is now selling ads on the free tier, they're monetizing attention. But attention and intent are not the same currency. Walmart, Amazon, Google, they built entire empires on the fact that search intent is the highest value traffic on the internet. OpenAI is trying to enter that game, but they're coming in through the attention door, not the intent door. And that gap, attention versus intent, is exactly where the 3 times lower conversion rate lives. So the question for anyone watching this is, when you're building or positioning an agentic experience, which currency are you actually trading in? Because if you confuse attention for intent, you'll build the wrong product and position it to the wrong audience. Now, Sparky, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so you keep actually driving me to interesting and different questions that I want to present. What is the difference between Google search intent and GPT intent? Because essentially, at a foundational level, it's typing a question into a search bar. So, why do you believe that based on this experience, that the conversion was so low? I guess 3 times lower than those on the company's website. What do you think the disconnect was?
Great question. And the difference is more psychological than technical. When someone types into Google, they already know they want something. The query is a signal of a decision already in motion. Buy red Nike shoe size 10. That person is ready. Google built an entire advertising empire on capturing that moment of declared intent. When someone types into ChatGPT, they're in a fundamentally different cognitive state. They're exploring, thinking out loud, processing. The query is a signal of curiosity, not commitment. What are the best running shoes for flat feet on ChatGPT is a research behavior, not a buying behavior. And here's the positioning implication that's critical for your audience. The interface looks identical. A search bar is a search bar, but the emotional state behind the query is completely different. And when you insert a checkout experience into an exploratory emotional state, you're asking someone to make a commitment before they finish thinking. That's the conversion killer. It's not the technology. It's the emotional mismatch between the platform's psychological contract with the user and the commercial ask being made of them. Google earned the right to show you a buy button. OpenAI hasn't earned that right yet with its user base. That's why Sparky on Walmart's own platform makes strategic sense. What are you seeing on Sparky specifically?
Okay, so if I go to walmart.com/cp/sparky, what we have here is Meet Sparky, your AI assistant, only in the Walmart app. Get it today. So, okay, so that's saying that it's a unique, it's a unique to Walmart experience. So, oh, you know what? Oh, this is interesting. So Sparky's likely powered just by OpenAI. I think they're consolidating and realizing that they need to get APIs installed in companies instead of trying to create useful experiences. Their literal revenue driver in their world is enterprise API contracts. So Sparky is powered by AI. It may make mistakes or use data from outside Walmart. Never share personally sensitive info. So Sparky makes it easy. Not sure where to start? Ask Sparky. You'll get answers fast with real-time Q&A. Sparky reads the reviews. Get review summaries to help make your best pick. No surprises here. Know more about your products before you check out. So, new party planning, hosting, tell Sparky, shop Sparky's recommendations, order and go. Sparky's getting smarter. Stay tuned as Sparky learns and improves. Terms apply. So, then there's an FAQ section here, but as I read all of that out and mention that, what comes up for you?
That's the right question. And what Walmart just showed you is the answer. Notice what Sparky is doing. It's not trying to be a general intelligence. It's not trying to be ChatGPT. Every single feature you just read out is designed to remove friction at the exact moment a buying decision is being made. Review summaries, product knowledge, party planning to cart. Every touch point is intent acceleration, not intent creation. And your instinct about OpenAI powering Sparky under the hood is probably right. And that's actually a brilliant repositioning move for OpenAI if you think about it. They tried to own the consumer relationship and failed. Now they become the infrastructure that powers everyone else's consumer relationship. That's a completely different category to own. They go from being a retailer facing consumer product to being the engine underneath retail experiences. But here's what I want to bring back to your question about keeping customers on track, because that's where this gets really practical for your audience. Sparky works because it has a constrained mission. It knows what it's for. It knows where the journey ends, the checkout button. So the question I'd put back to you, Troy, is for the people watching this who are building agentic experiences, do they have that same clarity of mission? Do they know exactly where their agent's job ends and the human decision begins?
Good question. One of the next websites we're going to be doing reviews on is Shopify and looking at their agentic experience and their positioning. But yeah, I think like to what you said, like an agent becomes very efficient if its knowledge base is constrained and it knows what the end goal is. If it's left up to ambiguity, there's a lower likelihood of success in regard to even the tool chain in itself and reaching a higher benchmark of success. So, it's fascinating.
Exactly. And that's actually a positioning principle, not just a technical one. When you constrain the mission, you sharpen the value proposition. Sparky isn't trying to be everything. It's trying to be the best possible bridge between browsing and buying inside Walmart's ecosystem. That constraint is what makes it credible. And this is where a lot of companies building agentic experiences are going to make a critical mistake. They're going to try to build the most capable agent instead of building the most useful one. Capability without context is just noise. And when we get to Shopify, I think you're going to see a very different positioning philosophy. Because Shopify's customer is the merchant, not the consumer. So their agentic experience has to serve a completely different master. But before we move there, I want to name something for your audience that I think is the central positioning lesson from everything we've covered so far. The companies that are going to win in agentic shopping are not the ones with the most powerful AI. They're the ones who most clearly understand where their agent sits in the emotional journey of their customer, before the decision, during the decision, or after the decision. Those are three completely different positioning jobs. And most companies haven't asked themselves that question yet. Shall we move to Shopify?
No, that's fine. We're not going to do Shopify today. We're going to do that another day. I believe that's going to be one of my next videos. So this is good. I think there's a lot of really good stuff inside of here. Uh, so one thing that I'm reading in this article, and I'm not sure if this is true, March 26th, that wasn't that long ago. Walmart will embed its own AI assistant called Sparky within ChatGPT for shoppers. So that's interesting. From a consumer's perspective, things don't look much different. When they choose to buy, for instance, they won't be kicked over to Walmart's website. The process will be seamless. Shopping can start anywhere now, whether that's Walmart or a question in Chat GPT. That's interesting because that's a little opposing to what we were talking about a little earlier.
Yeah, that's a really important nuance. And it actually reframes everything we said. So if Sparky is embedded inside ChatGPT, Walmart has essentially solved the congruence problem we identified earlier, because now the brand doing the converting is Walmart, not OpenAI. The trust relationship belongs to Walmart even inside ChatGPT's interface. That's a completely different strategic move than what OpenAI was trying to do with instant checkout. OpenAI was trying to own the transaction. Walmart is saying, we'll meet the customer wherever they are, but we're bringing our brand, our trust, and our checkout experience with us. And that's a massive positioning distinction. It's the difference between a platform trying to become a retailer and a retailer expanding their surface area without leaving their lane. And here's what this signals for the agentic shopping category broadly. The future isn't one platform owning the entire journey. It's brands embedding their trusted experience into whatever platform their customer is already on. Which means the real question for anyone building in this space is not, where does my agent live? The question is, whose trust am I borrowing and whose trust am I building? Because those are two very different long-term strategies. That changes the Shopify conversation significantly when we get there too. What else are you seeing in that article?
So this one's interesting. Retailers are trying a number of different approaches to AI e-commerce today. While Walmart integrates its own AI assistant into larger platforms, The Gap says it's rebuilding its digital foundation to support AI end-to-end, letting customers purchase directly within Gemini using Google's commerce protocols. Sephora has launched a ChatGPT app that offers personalized recommendations and will soon offer in-app checkout. And Shopify earlier this week announced it was upgrading the shopping experience in ChatGPT, letting merchants connect storefronts to its catalog and complete the purchase via an in-app browser. Ultimately, the success or failure of AI shopping will come down to the consumer experience.
That's a fascinating landscape snapshot. And what you just read out is actually a positioning map of the entire agentic shopping category right now. And what's striking is every single one of those companies is taking a different approach. Walmart is embedding their brand into other platforms. Gap is rebuilding from the infrastructure up. Sephora is going app first with personalization as the entry point. Shopify is connecting merchants to existing AI platforms. But here's what unifies all of them, and what the article got right at the end. It all comes down to consumer experience. But I'd push that further for your audience. It's not just consumer experience, it's consumer trust at the moment of transaction. Because anyone can build a smooth experience. The harder question is, has the brand earned the right to ask for a credit card number inside a new environment? And that's where positioning becomes the deciding factor. Not the technology, not the platform, not the integration. It's whether the consumer feels safe enough, certain enough, and motivated enough to complete a purchase in an unfamiliar context. And Troy, looking at all four of those companies, which one do you think has the strongest positioning foundation to actually earn that trust in an agentic environment? Because I have a perspective, but I want to hear yours first.
Hmm. Can you say that question again?
Sure. Looking at those four companies, Walmart, Gap, Sephora, and Shopify, which one do you think has the strongest positioning foundation to actually earn consumer trust at the moment of transaction inside an agentic experience?
Which platform? I think Walmart likely has the biggest ability because they have the largest amount of they have a lot of generals. They have a lot of general products that day-to-day users want, and I think like they have the highest likelihood to make this work. Mm, yeah, that's my first initial thought.
That's a solid instinct. And here's why I'd agree with you, but add a layer to it. Walmart wins not just because of product breadth. They win because of purchase frequency. When someone shops at Walmart, they're already in a habitual buying relationship with that brand. Habit is the most powerful positioning asset in commerce. You don't have to rebuild trust every time because the behavior is already grooved. Sephora is interesting, though, and I'd actually put them as a close second for a very different reason. Their customer is already in a high consideration, high emotion purchase mindset when it comes to beauty. And personalization is the core value proposition of their brand. So an AI assistant that offers personalized recommendations is completely congruent with why people go to Sephora in the first place. Gap, on the other hand, has the weakest foundation of the four, in my opinion, because they're rebuilding their digital infrastructure, which signals they're starting from behind. And rebuilding from the ground up while the category is moving this fast is a dangerous position to be in. And Shopify is a different animal entirely because they're not a consumer brand. They're merchant infrastructure. So their positioning win looks completely different from the others. But here's the central takeaway for your audience from this entire conversation, Troy. In agentic shopping, the brands that already own a trusted, habitual relationship with their customer have a massive head start. The technology is almost secondary. What's your closing thought on all of this?
No, this is fantastic. I think it's such a new space that I think trying to bring the original fundamentals of advertising and positioning into it is going to make these experiences work. Because trust, if there's a line here, if consumers become sufficiently comfortable with the information coming from chatbots as being all they need to make a decision, and that's a big if, this could become an important channel for retailers. That is based on trust. At the core end of the day, if they believe the responses, if they believe if the outputs are reasonable and high quality, I think that as long as we're leading on education and leading on building trust with the consumer as they're experiencing it, then I think it can be a hit. If not, it's going to struggle. It's going to be hard.
That's the perfect closing thesis, Troy. And I want to crystallize it for your audience in one clean thought. The brands that will win in agentic shopping are not the ones with the most sophisticated AI. They're the ones that treat trust as their primary positioning asset and education as their primary conversion tool. The technology is just the delivery mechanism. And what this entire teardown revealed is that the failure of OpenAI's instant checkout wasn't a technology failure. It was a trust and congruence failure. They tried to skip the relationship building phase and go straight to the transaction, and the market rejected it. Walmart, Sephora, and the others that are winning are the ones who understand that the agent has to earn its place in the customer's decision journey before it can ever ask for a credit card number. And the fundamental positioning principle underneath all of this is timeless. It predates AI, it predates e-commerce, it predates the internet. People buy from brands and experiences they trust. Full stop. The agentic layer doesn't change that rule. It just creates a new arena where that rule has to be proven all over again. This was a great teardown, Troy. Really sharp thinking throughout. When are you dropping this one?
This is fantastic, Edward. I'll be dropping this in the next, probably next day. Anyway, so we'll talk to you soon, and thank you so much. I'm going to close this off. So that's it. That's the review. That's the review of Agentic Shopping. I believe next I'm going to be going into a Shopify video, and I want to give a shout out to Ray Velez for pushing me to do these in regards to Agentic Shopping. I'm going to try and bring him on for one of these. So, anyways, talk to you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye bye.